Hey, I'm Jamie, and I'm here with Ben, my co-host, and this is Let Jamie Talk.
Yeah, welcome this morning. We are here to talk about all kinds of things, but this morning it's going to be fun because we're going to talk about the process of building a house, I believe. I've got a lot of questions, about what that process is.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have showed up if I knew that was the topic today. This is going to take a long time.
Is it?
Yeah, like probably, I don't know, 16 hours for the introduction.
It's not going to be a big house.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be a big house.
tiny house.
Yeah. No, but we're going to talk about that. But, how was your week?
It's been a good week. A lot of phone calling, a lot of walking through the house that I'm building right now and looking in each room and staring at the walls. It's the thing I do.
Well, no, there's no wall coverings yet.
That's right. It's an open framed house.
Still,
There's no interior finishes, but there is plumbing, electrical, heating and air conditioning, and framing. So
are you still walking around with the level, checking level?
Yeah. I didn't even finish doing that.
Oh.
I just try to think what is not done in this room that needs to be done and who do I need to call to get that thing done if it's not something that I'm going to do. Some of it is, something I'm going to do myself. And some of it is like engineering. Some of it's maybe electrical. Oh, we need to move an outlet. Or, oh, I took that electrical box down and now I have to call the electrician to put it back somewhere else. Things like that. Calling the roofer.
Okay.
That's important.
That's coming.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
So,
that could have already happened, right?
Yeah, I call a bunch of times. And I call my homeowners all the time. Brock and Alexis, I call them every day, multiple times a day. And I apologize sometimes because I'm like, dude, I'm sorry I keep calling you. But it's my job to just keep reminding you of the things that I need from you,
To be able to do what you need to do next.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So
and it's complicated. There's a lot of things coming and going.
Is it like finishings? You're talking about finishings?
Oh, yeah.
Or just like outlet placements?
Well, so, the idea that we're at a given stage at any point in the job, okay? And we have to be planning for the subsequent stages always.
Okay.
So decision-making is a big part of being a homeowner of a custom home. As you're having it built, you gotta, some people do well with this decision-making because it's a lot of stress. It can be. And some people don't do well with it and it freaks them out and they get overwhelmed and then they start acting like, just like overload, It just is too much for them because it's just demanding. I put a lot of demand on my homeowners to make these decisions in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money involved and that's stressful because they're thinking about spending all the money that it takes to build a house. And, a lot of times people might want something that is more expensive and it's not in the budget.
Yeah.
But that's everybody. That's everybody. So it's money and decision-making causes stress.
Wow. We didn't know we were here for therapy. Jeez.
I didn't mean to get all crazy with it, but I'm just saying this is from my perspective why I like to get to know a homeowner a little bit before I build for them. There's an idea. This sounds bad, but there's an idea that I'm gonna say here that you might meet somebody that wants a house. Okay. And as the builder, I am assessing the person as much as I'm assessing, do I want to build this house? This just the house, if you can separate that from the homeowner, the physical thing. And then the homeowner themselves. Do I want to be, we'll just say, married to this person for 6 months to a year and have to commit my patience and my understanding and all that to them that it takes to have a good builder-homeowner relationship for the duration of the job that's not going to explode and fall apart in the middle of it.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole episode.
I think, there's a lot in that, but we can stop there on that topic.
You're started getting into the topic today of where it all begins.
With building a house.
Yeah.
The process.
We can jump into that.
Well, we can go ahead.
Because I did want to say something. About your perfect posture because
I
read a comment that your posture is great. But
I was kind of straightening up right now.
So it made me very
shoulders.
Self-conscious about my own. Which I don't feel as comfortable.
Well, maybe you should straighten up, quit being a slouch.
I know. Maybe I should. I can't
By the way,
get it figured out.
Thanks for letting me wear your shirt today.
Yeah.
It feels good because I was cold and you got the thermostat set at what?
69.
69? And you're saying the heat's on.
It is.
That's air conditioning.
No, it's not.
Yeah, 69's in the AC zone.
This is very comfortable. I'm in a t-shirt.
Your AC.
I could be in
running.
shorts and still be okay.
All right, well, I'm going to start a fire over here on my side of the table to stay warm. But no, I'm doing good right now. All right, well, let's jump right into it here because we may have a little bit of limited time today.
Yeah.
And I want to, can I tell why we have to wrap it up at a certain time today?
I guess, yeah.
Because I have a good story.
All right, sure.
Because your son has to have a haircut today. Yes. Right?
He does.
Right. No, it's not my fault today.
It was already going to be short because you have a sound gig at 10 o'clock.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, somebody's got to run these shows. Listen. All right. So Ben's got to get his son's haircut today. And it reminded me of, well, I didn't get a haircut this week and I wanted to, but boo. That's a bummer. When my son was old enough to get his first haircut, I can't remember. I think, I don't know, a year old maybe he was. So his hair was getting kind of shaggy. And I thought, being the awesome dad that I was, that I would give him a quick trim with some scissors in the garage. And my, as my sister's brother-in-law was over at the time too. And we both thought this was a great idea.
They were just normal scissors, like
yeah, I mean,
paper
probably.
scissors.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so we take my son Carter out in the garage, and his hair's getting in his eyes a little bit. So we trim it up a little bit. You know, no big deal, made it look good. So then my wife gets home and finds out that I cut his hair because he had never had a haircut. All right, so I didn't know that a kid's first haircut is like a big deal or something.
Yep.
And she was like, literally, she was crying. I felt terrible. Like it was, you know, he was our first son at that time, our only kid.
First son, first haircut.
Yeah. And I just kind of hacked away at it. And I thought it looked pretty good, but that didn't matter at all how good it looked. The fact is that I took that from her somehow. Right. And then she's like, well, did you at least save the hair? And of course, it was like all on the floor in the garage, scattered out everywhere. I was like, yeah, of course. I just got it over here. And so I went out there and swept it up really quick and put it in a plastic bag. I said, yeah, of course I do. Everybody knows that you save all the hair. It's right here. So, hey, look, any dads out there, new dads? Hey, just don't do it. Just don't cut your kid's hair until your wife does it. And then you can't get in trouble for being stupid. Like me.
But you did better on the second and third child, I assume.
Oh, I guess. Stay away from the scissors.
I didn't know that. That's a good story.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Well, all right. So let's lead in to go back to where we were talking about, like where you get to know a homeowner a little bit before the house starts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that happen? I mean, homeowner finds you somehow.
Call me. Yep. Always just find my phone number on the internet.
Okay. And then meet up for coffee or lunch or...
Yes. So the typical way it goes, and I think it's a good way too. I get a phone call, and this has happened to me like literally just this week even.
Okay.
You know, I get multiple calls probably every week. Both myself and my brother are receiving these kinds of calls. You know, hey, I've seen your videos, or hey, I heard you're a builder and we have property in the area, or we are looking at buying property in the area, meaning where we live, of course, in Bryson City or close by. And they say, I want to build a house of such and such size. Do you want to do it? Or do you want to talk about doing it? I say, okay. The best thing to do is to meet that person at their property. All right. Now, I did this week too, and I'll maybe share a little bit of that. But around here, the house sites are not so generic as maybe a flat area, like a flat, I don't know, somewhere where there's no mountains, right?
The Midwest.
Okay, there we go. I couldn't think of a single place that's flat. Okay. All right. Any kind of like neighborhood development where it's flat, or you just buy flat land, you have a lot of freedom to build a house almost of any kind you want. Now, in the mountains, a lot of times that the site itself will dictate what the house design kind of needs to be, or at least limits how big it can be. Or I say this sometimes, that it designs the house for you. It doesn't really, of course, but the idea that you have such limited options as to, okay, I have to drive up on this side of the house. There's no other option, right? The road comes in this side, And so what do I want to be the first thing I drive up to on my house, right? Is, well, garage maybe, or a porch that leads into the kitchen or something like that. So most people that call me, by the way, don't have a design. They're like, I'm thinking I'm going to build a house. I don't know what it's going to be exactly.
Right.
You know, people don't usually just throw the plan down and say, this is what I'm building.
Yeah.
You know,
so, and I don't want to, you know, I want to think about this too, even if it's not you all doing it, just like in general, like what is, if I were to call any custom home builder wherever I lived, you know, do I need to have the property already? It's
not a bad thing unless you bought property.
Well, this is Jamie's list. This is your ideal. Like if you're going to call me or a custom builder, this is what I expect. Or a dream of, not maybe I expect, but dream of the fact that you own property.
It's good if you own property.
Okay.
If it's any good.
Okay. So that's step one is property.
Right. Yeah. So if people don't know, it's possible where we live to buy a piece of property that is no good. And what I mean by no good is that there are developments in our area that are on really steep mountains. And sometimes the developers get a little bit I don't know what the word is.
Developy.
Overly optimistic. or I don't want to use the word greedy because that doesn't sound good, but basically they try to fit more lots into land that does not accommodate these lots because it's too steep.
Oh, yeah.
And then they pay someone to put roads in and to put in a house site. But typically this is the way it goes for a house site, especially on steeper land. They don't put in the full-blown size house site. They just cut a little road up to a dead-end destination, right?
And it's also not necessarily the full-size road that you need to get fire protection
not really.
up there.
No, it's not. And that's a huge problem. We have a lot of inaccessible areas here in the mountains. Just recently have had wildfires and, you know, there's not access for, large trucks, fire trucks. There's like these little switchbacks and super steep roads. You can barely get a normal sized vehicle to these houses in 4-wheel drive.
Right.
So don't expect a Mack truck sized fire truck to come put your fire out.
Well, they're not going to do it. The concrete for the foundation, footers.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to recount an entire story that happened to me this week, but I've alluded to it a few times. But I had to recommend to a person that's looking at buying property that if you didn't buy this already, like you might want to see if you can get out of it. And because I don't particularly want to build on this site, like if you do close on this property and buy it, what I'm kind of saying in the nicest way I can is that, look, I don't think I want to build for you on this site. The person is great. Family's great. Seems like it'd be a really nice relationship, but it's not me. It's you. It's your land. So
gotcha.
Well, anyway, so that's the thing, and that's a problem. And a lot of people may not realize that because, like I was saying, when the developer puts in a road and they put in a little house site so that you can go to the spot and you can see the view, that's what sells the lots around here is the view of the mountains. And then the homeowner is going to have to pay a bunch more money to have that road improved, widened, and maybe drainage and piping and clearing, cutting trees, and then enlarging the house site to actually be big enough to accommodate a house.
Right.
Ooh, I was starting to slouch right there. I'm about to straighten up.
Caught it.
Yeah. So that's one of the beginning stages. Very beginning stages is getting the land, making sure it's good for building.
Well, but I mean, I think that's a little confusing. I think maybe, let's say if you're looking to build a house, in Charlotte, somewhere it's flat, buy the land first. If you're looking around here in the mountainous region, maybe that you should consult the builder first.
Consult the builder,
or at least know your real estate knows, and an agent knows enough about building to know.
Yeah, I mean that's a tricky situation, a tricky question, sort of. But Eric and I do a lot of that kind of thing where it's usually homeowners call and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying this lot. Would you come look at it and see if you would buy it if you were going to build? If you approve of it as a builder." And it's about a 50-50.
Right. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. That way you're not committed to buy it or already have purchased it, only to find out that a couple things are bad. Either you can't find a builder that wants to build on it, or it doesn't approve for a septic system, because out here in the mountains, we don't have city water and sewer. And maybe a lot of people are used to that in the cities or any almost any place not in the mountains. I don't really know, but a septic system, your own dedicated sewage system is required to be put in the ground. There's requirements for the ground that it goes in. Not only that, you have to have an area large enough for what we call the drain field, which is where all the water actually seeps into the ground from the septic system. It takes up a lot of area. You have to have what's called a repair area. Have you heard of that? You probably know what it is.
I have, yeah.
Okay, so that's where you have to have room for an additional drainage field in case your first one fails. And by failing, I mean it stops absorbing water. So you'll see water come up out of the ground and it's fully saturated, and you're running the wash and you got 3 kids in the shower and you are running the sink and whatever, and that water is not being absorbed back into the ground. So then you have to have a plan B, right? So both of those, the plan A and the plan B areas, have to both pass a percolation test. Percolating going on.
Not Perkins Builder Brothers percolation.
No, and I wish I knew more about that. They require a lot of times for you to dig a test hole.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if they pour water in it and time how much it takes a certain amount of water to absorb in the ground, but I've seen them they'll pick up some the dirt and they'll do this in between their fingers, kind of roll it in between their fingers and listen to it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. No, they don't sniff it. They don't sniff it. And they definitely do that. Don't do that when they come back if your thing failed and pick up some dirt. All right. So what I was told is that they're listening for how much sand might be in the soil. And maybe my person was the only one that ever does that. If there's any septic experts out there, yes, she was listening. It was a woman. I forget her name, but she was somebody I knew. And I'll be honest, she actually was not loving the soil where my septic system was going to go. This was for my own house.
Okay.
All right. And she was going there to do the approval and give me the permit for my septic system. So there was supposed to be a certain sound that the soil made, and it wasn't quite making that sound.
I feel like you got pranked.
Well, I don't know. Well, and then so she kind of looked at, she was doing the sample or the hearing test, and she wasn't really hearing it much. And then she was looking at me, giving me the concerned look, but then she was going to approve it for me. She was like, Jamie, you do hear it, don't you? She was nodding her head real big, winking at me. You hear it, right? I said, oh yeah. Oh, it sounds good. Yeah. So that's what happened to me. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just telling you that's the way it was.
Man, I had no clue.
Okay.
Now, all right. So, so you're looking at the property, you find the property. Do you before you buy the property, do you find out if it's got ample water supply and space for sewage, or do you do that after? I
think, the septic approval is an easy one to knock off or to get done before you buy. And a lot of people put it in a contract as a contingency, meaning if it didn't pass an inspection, then they're out of the contract, right? They're not going to buy. And, developers, if they were smart, I think at least, would get these lots pre-approved for septic so that that's not a stressful maybe for the homeowner that they're we're buying this. Oh, we're waiting. We don't know if it's going to pass septic, but they do expire too. And maybe there's a way that they don't, that maybe they can get around that somehow. But the last one that we did on a spec lot, we were going to build on some property that we had bought, and we had the health department come out. They did an inspection. They flagged out the size of the septic system and all that for a certain size house. And the septic system is based on how many bedrooms that the house has, not how big it is, not how many bathrooms it has, although that's a common misconception. You can have a 1-bedroom house with 10 toilets in it if you want, and you still put in a septic system for a 1-bedroom house. Although little asterisk beside that, I think the minimum is a 2-bedroom septic system that you're allowed to be approved for.
Gotcha.
So, all right, well, sometimes they expire. Your permit may expire. Now, even if your land didn't change or any factor about it, you could, I think it's 3 or 4 years, all right? So a developer that puts 50 lots in, they say, okay, I want to get all these lots approved. Well, if it takes 10 or 15 years to sell all those lots, well, then they're going to have all these systems that were approved expire. But there's a way around it too.
Okay.
And I have heard of certain people doing this.
5 years.
Is 5 years? Okay. Apparently here, at least in North Carolina, you get 5 years to take action, or you have to maybe go through the process again. You could also bypass the traditional system and hire an engineer.
Okay.
And I don't know what they're called. What is a septic system engineer called? Brett's going to maybe look it up. And they can design for you a special septic system that may be not conventional or may fit in a space that is smaller than a traditional system or something. So there may be some ways around it. And there may be some other crazy alternate ideas too. I don't really know. Like, for example, putting all of it into a giant tank and having it pump periodically, but that's not a normal way. And I don't know that that's approved in any way. Sorry, this septic thing is really a kind of a
deep hole.
It can be a major problem. Now there have been lots sold without approval that didn't get an approval, and then you just bought a piece of land that you can't build on. Hopefully the seller would be willing to like buy it back, I guess, or whatever, or refund you if that was the case, or else they would go on the naughty list for sure, in my opinion. But whatever that means. So then water. Okay, you got septic and then water.
Okay.
All right. And this is stuff people don't really think about because this is not a day-to-day normal person thing to think about, really.
Right.
I mean, I would think so anyway. All right, water. If you're in city limits, guess what? Call the town water folks and say, hey, I'd like to buy a meter. You want to put in a water meter.
You want a tap.
You would know. A tap. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right, you do the process, fill out the paperwork, whatever. They come out there, assess where the nearest pipe is, and dig for you up to your property and install you a box in the ground with a little meter on it and a shutoff valve. There you go. There's your water. And the sewer probably would come the same way. But where we are, most people have to drill a well.
Yep.
And that's super expensive. I don't even know what it costs now per foot, but that's how they charge as they're drilling down per foot. It was like $10 to $12 per foot when I did my house in 20 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Not quite, but.
And sometimes they have to drill multiple, right?
You could drill a totally dry well.
Yeah.
That is very possible. And I don't know if it matters if you're on top of a mountain or down in the valley. You could hit water any old place or not.
Right. Well, I was wondering about that because with there's when you're coming east on 74 at Alarka, there's that house that's like way up on the top. I mean, like tip top. And it's like, there's no way that place was able to get water, I don't think, from a well. Because it's like literally at the top of the mountain.
It is.
And it's like, you couldn't drill down far enough.
You would need a big drill. I don't know.
To hit water. So it's like you look at that and I'm like, I really wonder how they got water. And maybe they have it, but
$25 to $75 a foot right now. Right now, that's maybe average or okay. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I think they might.
It's a lot different than 12.
12 is
19 years ago.
12 is sounding like a deal now. I mean, I spent $10,000 to get my well drilled with a pump installed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now it's 5 times that. Or
that's
more.
Expensive.
That's a lot.
But you got to have water.
Yeah.
And I have had people. So, okay. Question.
Okay.
If you say you can get sewer, all right, and you bought your lot, should you build a house, then drill a well, or drill a well and then build a house?
I think knowing what I know about water, I think I would drill a well first.
That's a good choice. That's a good choice. And some people do that and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Some people roll the dice, or maybe they have a plan B. Maybe the neighbor has a big well.
Don't say shared well.
Maybe the neighborhood has a system that you can tap into.
Don't do that either.
Listen, I live in a neighborhood as such, and I drilled my own well. I did. Things get complicated when you have a well and a storage tank and multiple people on it, and who's going to pay for what, and they tied the pump into this house, and the power bill is now with this person's, and then you got to have that thing serviced periodically. And then somebody's going to fill up the swimming pool with the water and burn up the pump. And there's algae in the tank now. And somebody's got to figure out how to treat that. And all right, you get the point.
That sounds like an episode.
You get the point.
I mean, it's like, if you're having problems getting people to pay to fix the driveway, I guarantee you're going to have problems with the shared well.
That's right. Yes. All right. Yeah. So buy some land that approves for septic, drill a well, have water. And then power. We can't move on. We may not get very far today because we can't move on past power.
Okay.
All right. How do you get power?
And all right. Well, power, is this all before you bring somebody in to look at the grading? Like I'm still sitting there talking with you Or do I bring somebody in to look at grading and about a driveway?
No,
or do I do that before power?
You must do your road improvements prior to getting power, especially if you're going to have underground power. I guess it's possible to do overhead power, or you could have an overhead power pole within 100 feet of where you want it to go, or 200 feet, and you don't have to do anything, maybe. But if you're going to do underground power, they dig it about 3 feet deep. They lay a huge wire under the ground, right? And if you say, all right, put the power in, and then all of a sudden you decide you want to lower your road by 6 feet, well, guess what? You are going to have to pay to have that wire removed, right? They put it in for free typically, and I'm going to tell you some cases where they don't.
Free
power, because they know they're going to make money on you when you use electricity. Hello. So why would they not put it in for free sometimes? If you have a driveway that's really long or really rocky, as in they have to use dynamite to blast a ditch, and if you are the only house at the end of the line, and if they have to put in a mile of a very expensive wire for you, and they know that they're limited how much money they can make back on that, and I'm sure they have all the formulas about how many years it takes on an average size house to recover the cost of the underground. They're going to do the math and say, this does not pan out. And I had one homeowner that had to pay, I think, about $25,000 just to have the electric line put in.
Wow.
Yeah. So the power company was at no risk. They just wouldn't do it. And he paid for it.
Yeah. Okay. So you need that grading person.
Grading person's critical. Oh, man. Grading.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So you got the property, the builder's there. Yeah, this will work. We figured out I can get some septic in here. There's enough space. I'm going to think about drilling a well. I've got so-and-so who does all this grading with me. How's this going to go? You're going to start at the bottom. You're going to cut the driveway in this way. I don't want 25 switchbacks. Hopefully
not. Hopefully not. And, oh, man, I tell you what, I think if there was ever a place to save money in the process, it's not on getting a cheap person to do your grading, excavating, house site digging.
Gotcha.
It's man, and I don't want to knock anybody because maybe some people don't know any better and they're doing the best they can.
I mean, anybody can buy a track hoe.
I did, so it's proof for sure. I'm up on the side of a mountain digging a road right now, fixing a road. But yeah, I do have people I call and get my best absolute advice, and I've been around it my whole life. So, but that doesn't make me an expert at it or at operating a machine anyway. All right, so you can look at some developments and say, wow, they did a great job on these roads. Or you could look at them and be like, these roads are awful. So what makes a good road and a bad road? I'll tell you a few things.
Okay.
All right. I know you want to answer that.
Drainage is one for sure.
Drainage is probably the hugest issue. Where does the water go? Water, man, is hugest.
That means big.
Where does the water go and how does it get there?
Yeah.
Where I live, for example, let's see, how far is it from Fontana Road to my driveway is
quarter mile.
Almost called a quarter mile.
Yeah.
All right. There is one ditch line that runs from the top of the mountain down one side of the road, stays on the same side of the road all the way to the bottom. Now, the thing is, water will accumulate and the speed of it increases.
Gravity.
We've got gravity at play.
Right.
More and more water the farther you go down because there's more water contributed to it. And by the time it gets to the bottom, it is a raging river that is spewing leaves and mud and all kinds of sticks and debris onto the road, jumping the ditches and going out of bounds because there's no culverts. A culvert is just a pipe that takes water and usually they go under the road and cross the road at 90 degrees about.
And that slows the water down.
It takes some of the water and dissipate it or get rid of it.
Okay.
So that you don't have a run of ditch line. Maybe, I'm going to say 100 feet. I don't know what somebody that really knows would say.
Yeah.
Let's say 100 feet. So how many 100 feet are there in a quarter mile? We'll never know. All right?
I bet we will.
But whatever that number is, that's how many culverts there should be.
Gotcha.
Diverting the water into short length segments of ditches, right? So it can't ever accumulate beyond a certain amount, cause more erosion. All right, so that does not happen in my neighborhood. It all goes down the one road
Okay.
forever. 13. All right.
For a quarter
For
mile.
a quarter mile. Now, that may not be 100% accurate, whatever. Somebody really knows. But just the idea of it that, say, every X amount of feet, you need to divert the water and not a lot. Now, unless it's like concreted or maybe your ditch line. If your ditch was
Still, that can get washed out underneath.
some material that can't get eroded. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready literally to redig a bunch of our ditch lines in our neighborhood myself.
Yeah.
Because they are causing problems. Again, the mud in the road, sticks and leaves and all that going into the road, ditches full of sediment. So the water runs out of the ditch onto the road. And also it undercuts the pavement in some places. Yep. It's causing the road to deteriorate. And I'm not cool with that. So I'm going to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Your trailer's going to slide off the side of the hill when you're pulling it up through there.
Don't say that. There's speakers in that trailer.
Tell the story how you fixed the ditch with your truck.
Fixed it. Oh, just by driving in it? Well, you get big clumps of leaves and stuff in the ditch. Sometimes they pile up and do all the same problems. So sometimes I just put my truck in four-wheel drive and just drive up and down the ditch and just ream it out just to spin it up and try to break those things loose.
Right. That's great.
That's a trick I learned actually when I was little. My parents used to do that in the ditch on the road where I grew up. And I think it's effective to some degree. At least you don't have to get out. Okay, and there's all kinds of other things with the grading. Like, for example, to do a good grading job, you cut all the trees out of your way first in areas you're going to
But who? That's a whole other thing. Who gets the tree person?
Well, a lot of times the grading person will do that.
Okay.
As part of what they do, knocking down trees and
Gotcha.
and getting them out of the way. But a lot of people, if you're doing not a great job, you might leave the tree stump in the ground and then pile dirt over it. Well, you don't see that. It's covered.
But it's going to rot.
If a tree falls in the woods and then the stump gets covered with dirt, is it still there?
Yes.
It is. And why is that a problem? Because eventually they rot out. And then it becomes a void and they're settling and sinking. I'm sure people can relate. If you had a tree in your front yard and you cut the stump off and maybe you filled it in with dirt or something, over time that will keep sinking. It'll be a hole there forever. You just continue to have to fill it in. So you don't want that. All right. There's a bunch more, but we'll just say it pays to get a really good grading contractor. Even if you feel like you're paying more than you want, I don't think you'll regret it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yeah,
really don't.
The strong start with the foundation, right?
Yes.
So, and that means the earth
of the road. Yes.
of the that or the site or whatever. Yeah. It's like that's start.
Dude,
there.
there's so much to it. There's so much knowledge and expertise it takes to do anything at a really high level.
Now, being the contractor, do you recommend grading companies?
I have a few people. Yeah.
Okay. So
I have a few. Yeah.
You can narrow the list for somebody.
If they don't have
most
one,
contractors should be able to do that.
I think so. I think being in the business of what we do, building houses, that we just know these people because we have to do this kind of work and work with other people and in the field. So, yeah, I have 2 or 3 that I highly recommend to people.
Okay.
And maybe they can work for me because I'm going to be stuck with working on this house site in this road, whatever, for the duration of the job. So I want it to be really good, and for my homeowner, of course.
Yeah.
In the future.
So, all right, we get the road. We've contacted the power company.
Yep.
They've determined what they're going to do. House design. We're working on this during that process.
I think so. I tell people to get a bunch of pictures of houses they like the look of.
Okay. Now, do you draw the house?
I used to draw some houses.
Okay.
I mean, I used to kind of offer that as a service, like free design if I build your house. And then I realized this is taking too much of my time. And it's actually just getting a house designed, a custom home for somebody it's a rigorous process. It can be, I don't know. I don't want to make it look bad or sound bad, but it's a demanding process when you build design a custom home for somebody that's going to meet every one of their check boxes of all their dreams of the things that their house is going to be, right? And it will take many revisions. You'll start somewhere.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like you don't just build, you're not building for most people like their starter home.
Not usually. No.
Yeah, so it's not like I just need, 2 beds and a bath and just get me going,
That sounds nice.
You're building people's dream homes. Like,
I think so.
I've lived in 10 homes, my entire life, and now it's time for me to build my dream home. So therein lies like, I want this to be perfect.
Sure.
So you draw it this way, and they're like, no, that can't be there because I didn't think about this. It's like, this got over here.
Yeah. The whole thing about it being the dream home is the truth. And also like saving up the money, like the pressure that gets put on a person to either build or whatever, is like the expectation that the homeowner may have, may be very high. And I'm not saying that's bad. I have high expectations of myself, but you got to think they've been, like I said, maybe lived in 10 homes. And with every one, there's something that drove them crazy about that house or something that they liked. So if you take one thing you like and one thing you hate about every house you lived in 10 of them, and then you compile a list of all those things that you do and you don't want into your new design and have to make it play friendly with the site that you bought and everything else. And how much is it going to cost? And I don't know how architects price houses. And there's different ways. Like I think in commercial architecture, the architect actually makes a percentage of the build cost.
Gotcha.
Sort of like I build as a cost plus builder. Total cost of the job, and a percentage of that is how much I get paid. Well, if the architect gets paid that way, then what do you want to design? Something super cheap or something maybe that might cost more? I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know.
Okay. Well, and so an architect comes in here at some point. Do you recommend people to an architect? Do they have to draw the house? Somebody has to draw the house. Or do you buy? You can buy. I guess you can buy house plans.
You can buy house plans
online.
What I found is that a lot of the house plan companies, I don't want to say generic, but it's a generic type of plan, as in it's not specifically designed for any particular area because they want to be able to sell their plans everywhere. Like say in the United States, or whatever, if you want a house in the mountains, but this plan is designed to be built anywhere. Well, there's special exceptions for like high wind zones. Is it built for a high wind zone? Like in the mountains, we have high wind zones here.
If you're looking for that view, you're probably going to be in one, right?
You could have, yeah, exactly. You could have a house that's only designed for a 90 mile an hour wind zone. And now you want to stick it in 115 or 130. And without major structural changes or improvements, maybe not just to the build, but to the design, you can't build it there. Right. So, and a lot of times those things are not factored into those plans. And there's, I tell you what, if I could be a home designer, architect, I would want to be an engineer first. I would. And I've been thinking about this a lot because of the build that I'm on and a site that I just recently visited where I told the homeowner for sure, you need an engineer to design your house. Like an architect, that's great. And not to say there aren't people who already are both.
But they work hand in hand.
I almost think it's
right.
Yeah, it seems like how can you be an architect and design houses but not be an engineer too? I know that maybe there are engineers in firms that, okay, this is the architecture side, this is the engineering side. They both co-design something, or I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know how it works outside of my experience.
Yeah.
Right. Like where I live and in my personal experience, like I don't have experience with big firms designing houses. I don't have experience with, a lot of different architects in a lot of different areas. I just don't have that experience. So I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
But if I was going to say after what I know now, okay, I want to design houses. Let's say I just decide that's what I'm going to do. Well, I think I need to get some engineering and it's hard to become an engineer. I think the guy that I'm using right now, he said when he went to school to be an engineer, he entered in a class of like almost 500 and only like 40 came out with their degree.
Wow.
Out of that many. It's extensive in the math department. You got to like math. If you don't like math, holy moly, forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to, I don't know where I'm going.
What happened to the other 460?
We'll never know.
They became architects.
No, my dad's an architect for anybody listening, and I'm proud of that. But nothing against architects. I just don't know how you can draw pretty houses and not know structurally exactly what you're doing. You know, I think the problem is you could design something really pretty, a great looking house, but it not necessarily be structurally, and then it can fall on the builder. If a builder gets what I call a pretty picture of a house, but the structural or the engineering part of it is not included, then it falls on the builder to come up with the ways to build it in strength that is acceptable, or to code. I mean, the code outlines, so much of what we can and can't do.
Now, we bring up all these things you're talking about cost money already,
Oh yeah.
like we're already deep in the well of money for just the road. Well, buying the property, the road, the grading, clearing, power, sewer, water. I mean, you're 6 figures in probably.
Custom building,
at least, so
it can be expensive.
well, should step one have been money, the bank?
Well,
I mean,
budget.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
there's
is it like, do I need to have the cash on hand to do this, or is it like a construction loan? Now, and we're getting out of my depth a little bit here. Maybe
Well, I don't
Brett
know.
might know a little bit more. Maybe out of
I
your depth
don't
too.
know.
But
I mean,
do you feel like does the people do you deal with construction loans a lot, or do you know that?
yeah, I know very little about how they actually work. I mean, I've
Right.
had plenty myself, actually, as the homeowner of custom homes that I've built privately. But you need to borrow money if you don't have enough, right?
You need to borrow enough.
Well, how does the construction loan work?
Well, they won't. First of all, if you say, "All right, my house is going to cost, I don't know, $300,000," they're not going to give you a loan for $300 unless you have a piece of property that's worth $500, and they know that if you default on the loan or can't pay and they foreclose, that they're going to own your property. So if you don't own property yet, or some other great collateral, you're not going to get a loan, or have fantastic credit or something. But they will never loan. I don't think. I shouldn't say never. They won't loan the entire amount. So if you want to build a house that you think is going to cost $300,000 or $400,000, you're only going to get maybe 75-80% of that cost. And a bank will only pay for work completed.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you start when there's no work completed, but you need money to start?
Yeah,
It falls on the homeowner typically just as to fund upfront the start of the build. Some people think that the builder will front that, and there might be builders out there that do that, but I don't. I don't ever put my personal money into a build. That seems risky to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, you're going to need to get, and then the bank will do inspections, and they'll evaluate the percentage complete in whatever category that you're working on. Say it's foundation. They have a certain point system that they assign a certain value to each point based on the loan value, and then, when that work is complete, they say, all right, you've got your points for the foundation in. We've got 2 points assigned to that, which would equate to 2% or maybe of the job or 4% of the job. And then they would disperse the funds based on that amount. Okay, well, now the builder has that amount, but that money, that the thing is already built. I mean, so whatever you just got the money for based on the inspection, that portion is already done.
Right.
So you're going to use that money to fund the next phase, which would be like maybe framing or something. And then they have points in a dollar amount associated with the framing being complete. And so, it's a little tough.
You're always in the rears.
Yeah, but site prep doesn't necessarily go into a construction loan, or does it?
The only things that I've seen on there is that they will sometimes include water and sewer. You can or could ask for that, and they could include that potentially. Site work, I don't know. See, I don't think the bank thinks that they're going to spend their money well on site work.
Right.
Moving some dirt around, I don't think they're going to redeem value if they're not going to be guaranteed that your idea of land improvements is going to actually
Add value.
add value to the land, right? So I don't think they're going to go out on a limb on that one.
So you need to be prepared for quite a bit here.
I think, you're going to have to front the money to make the site improvements, potentially put in the well and in the septic. Because what if you think you could get that bundled into the loan, but you don't have a house design yet, and you need to go ahead and get a well drilled and find out if you're going to have water before you even design and build.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get a loan just for a well.
Well, who tells me how much this house is going to cost? Like, I've got this layout, I've got the land. I need to know how much this is going to cost.
That's a great question.
Who's going to
Golly.
who's going to tell me that?
I don't know, man. I mean, hopefully the bank is doing this all the time, right? If anybody should know, the bank should know, because they're in the business of funding the cost of building houses. So who would know better about the cost of building houses? It can vary so much though, based on the homeowner's choices and things that happen during the build that cost extra money and finishes. Like Who knows what I don't know.
All right,
People
so-
ask a lot. What does
I
a
know.
house cost
Yeah,
per
but
foot?
say you're building my house. Are you
All right.
gonna tell me what it's gonna cost?
I could. Here's man.
No,
Okay, am I?
But are you gonna just tell me I'm a cost plus builder and this is how I'm talking about you? I'm not talking about
All right,
all
okay.
other contractors.
I'd
I'm
love to
talking
just
about
tell you what other people say, because then I deflect, defer. I would say I'm going to charge you cost plus, and it costs what it costs to build. But I think there has to be at least a general, like, this is a $500,000 house, or this is $1 million house, or this is a $2 million house, and hopefully the homeowner has an idea. And I need to, if I have to give them an idea of what I think it could cost, although I am not the most accurate at doing that. I'll tell you what we used to do. We used to price out every house down to the dollar that we thought it would cost.
Right.
Because we used a different pricing system called fixed pricing, where we didn't have the luxury of it just costing whatever it cost, you know, or I didn't make any money. Right. And that did happen every now and then.
That was really pre-COVID.
And
when prices started to escalate quickly.
Yes. No, it's all good. So before 2020, when COVID hit and prices of everything went skyrocketed or wacky, just you never knew what was going to be more expensive or not. Building materials, at least, were highly affected. You know, it was possible. Things were very stable as far as the cost of lumber, the cost of trades to come in, say like wiring, you know, heating and air, insulation, roofing. All, you know, we had a record of what things cost in the past. And we were always chasing, okay, that house cost this much. Now the very next one, I'm going to refer to those prices based on the, you know, maybe the square footage. You could maybe run a ratio of square footage and come out. But we would actually fill out a spreadsheet that Eric created. Mm-hmm. And we had every stage of the house build listed out with a cost associated with it, right? With material and labor.
Okay.
All right, and this was accurate, and I bet he still has it. Actually, I've been tempted to dive back into it because people are asking. I need a ballpark of what my house is going to cost. I mean, you know, they're not going to hold me to it to the dollar, but like, is this a
right?
Is it a 400 or is it a 800? Is it you know? And
We do that.
You know, yeah, Brett and I have done that several times when we're evaluating the cost of a renovation on some of the farmhouse kind of stuff that we've done. And it's been pretty accurate. I don't know that I've ever done a house where we said, wow, we budgeted too much. You know, we didn't spend that money. I don't know, but you always need to include a miscellaneous amount or an overage amount or a
contingency.
Sure. 10%. Yeah. I would call it 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even too much. Mm-hmm. If you want to really feel good, make it 20.
Yeah.
And then you might have $1 left over when you're done. Now, so the pricing thing, basically I've talked for the last 5 minutes without saying anything, you see?
Yeah.
I've really just kind of go in circles around it without actually saying a real thing that somebody could base anything off of.
We're going to put you in politics.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But if you did follow a spreadsheet, and you could make one yourself, but you'd have to know the building process. Like even the one that the bank has provided me on this current job I'm doing, which is over $1 million house, it's too, I don't know if I can say granular. It's not divided enough into subdivisions that allow a dollar amount per stage or per part of the house.
Right.
Okay. We're talking even down to the doorknobs and the handrails on the stairs or the, I don't know, the light fixtures and I don't know.
All those decks have to have handrails too, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. And, sort of in the same way that house design, like a national company that does design might make them a little bit generic to fit a lot of different places. The bank loan also, the sheet that they have with their percentages sometimes is a little generic because they're making loans on all kinds of houses. And big and small and of different types. So they don't necessarily want to customize a loan sheet to your house and make your very own special spreadsheet, right? I don't think they do that. Mm-hmm. All right. So if it was possible to figure out the cost of a house.
Okay.
And it is possible. And people do it. And it's not like it's a impossible thing to do, but you literally just have to account for every cost. So in my mind, the way that I do that is I start and I build this house in my mind and I start to write on paper what it costs. Okay. So let's assume the site clearing and and all the not the foundation, but the site is prepped and ready to dig a footing. All right, that would be wonderful if I showed up and that was ready, but typically not. Or if somebody says I have a flat site, what does flat mean? Are we talking about the same flat here? Like, it's not flat. All right, that's a different thing. I would have to say, okay, the first day I'm on the job,
okay,
I'm going to dig the footings. Do I think I can dig them all in one day? Yes. Okay. What is my labor cost for that day? To have 3 or 4 guys out there, to have a machine out there for fuel and the rental of a machine. And, am I going to hit rock or am I going to hit nice soft dirt? Don't know.
You got to pick it up and listen to it first.
Yeah, that's right. You got to pick up a little dirt and let it talk to you. What are you? Oh, we're going to do this in the mic. Here we go. It sounds like this. Can you hear that?
I don't think they can.
Okay. All right. So, and I'm not going to go through the whole process right now, but the idea is that day 1 is digging the footings or layout. I didn't include layout. How am I going to dig it if it's not laid out? Like the one I'm doing right now, I think we spent 3 days laying out the foundation and marking it on the ground. And I mean, this thing is huge, right? And it's got an unknown number of corners in it.
Right. That's it. Yeah. It's not just a box.
Corners, offsets, deck foundations, garage. It's extensive. And so,
I spit a little bit there.
I just spit on your table. Actually, I blew a bubble. Do you ever blow bubbles with your spit by accident? No. Just like normal talking? Mm-mm. Do you not ever see a bubble fly out of your mouth and float across the air?
Are you?
I'm serious, dude. I'll be talking and I'll see a little tiny bit of spit come out of my mouth and it'll be a bubble.
And it flows across.
It will float away from it. Does. It just did it right there on your table.
No, it didn't.
I'm sorry about that, but it happened.
Well, you need to stop drinking bubbles.
I'm drinking the special tea. No, it happens to me all the time.
Bubble tea. That's a thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
I never heard of it. You made that up.
No, it's a thing. I don't think it's the same kind of bubble.
Okay, so I guess the idea here, I'm sorry, I get really distracted. The idea that you need to associate a cost for each day on the job. That's how you come up with a real price.
Yeah.
And hope that you're good at guessing how many days a certain task might take. Okay,
right.
So
because you're factoring labor, of your crew and all this other stuff too into that cost.
So if it's a small house, let's say it's less than 50 feet square, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
I know I could lay that out, I could mark it, and I could dig it in dirt that's good for digging in one day, and have the grade pin set, and maybe even throw the steel in there and have it ready for inspection on a small place. But again, the one I'm doing now, that took more than a week. So we're talking one day versus more than a week, 5 times the cost. There's 5 times the cost. Right. So it's such a wild card. Now, people that build, so that's what you do for every part of the job. And then the next day is pouring the footings. And then the next day is getting block or concrete material for your foundation, whatever it is, whether it's a basement or a crawl space or a slab. You're going to have to know the process of building to do this.
And so I would just going to make this inference that the more outside of a rectangle that my house design is, the more complicated and more expensive it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
The further you stray from just that standard rectangle, the more the cost is going to be.
It is, and how tall it is, how hard it is to work.
And how many levels, right? Roof lines.
Single-story houses are not highly popular here where we live. When it seems like the footage of the foundation is limited a lot of times. You say, well, I don't want to build a huge foundation. I'll build a smaller one and I'll build 2-story or 3-story, right? Go up instead of out. What I love the idea of is a barn dominium.
Yeah.
I've never built one. I've never even been in a proper barn dominium. But dang, I like the idea.
Yeah.
I do.
I think you should build one.
I knew a guy once that bought an elementary school, a literal school building, and made it his house. The Whittier school.
Right. Yep.
And I got to go in there. So the gymnasium was his workshop. How awesome. And every classroom was a different kind of room. It was like one was a crafting room, one was a bedroom, one, I guess there was already bathrooms. And you walk down the hall of a school.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was cool. So
I was in there once for something. It's not that anymore though.
I think it got bulldozed.
I got torn down.
Yeah, now there's how many 20 houses got built right there. Now, if you're a company that's building 20 houses in a row, you know the cost. I mean, down to the penny,
Gotcha.
right? You know all the trades, like all the subcontractor costs.
Yeah.
And you're going to build this house once, and you're going to know exactly what it cost if you didn't figure it out ahead of time, at least. And then you're going to build 20 more times. And you know exactly what it costs.
Well, that's sort of like the modular homes or the, is there another word for, am I saying it right?
Yeah, modular.
Yeah.
They build square boxes and set them with a crane, stack them like Legos.
Yeah, but what about, there's other like home kit company, like Shoemaker Homes or Schumacher Homes, like those, what kind of, is that a custom built home? Or is that more of a kit?
I think they have certain plans maybe that they modify if you want changes, but
I was trying to think
I'm
if
not real
there's
familiar
something
with those.
I know, but not everything's necessarily a modular house. Not everything gets set in little boxes.
There are definitely cool kit houses you can buy.
Right.
I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. Who was it? I don't remember, but you can buy the kit and it has every piece of material that you need, and I guess hopefully good instructions.
Gotcha.
On how to assemble it. They used to do this. This was popular back in the 50s, 60s. Was it Craftsman or one of those big companies? Was it Sears? Yeah, Sears. The Sears catalog. I wish I had one because I would have seen what was in there. But you could buy a house,
right?
And it would come with everything.
And you put it
build
together.
it. And I've seen pictures of them in neighborhoods, and they were cool houses.
You don't have to be a contractor to do that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you just do it.
Well, you can build a house yourself without having a contractor's license if it's for you.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy.
And the building department's okay with that.
It's fine. You still have to pass all the same inspections.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how that is. I mean, I'm happy that it is. Whatever. It's great.
It's so with we didn't really talk about the building department, but when do I contact them? In that process. Like, because
you have to have a house plan to get a permit to build a house. But you also, we didn't say this earlier, if you're going to get your septic system approved, you have to flag out the area that the house is going to sit.
Yeah.
Because they have to base the septic system off of that. And how big is it? So you may not know exactly. So you might say, well, I'm going to mark out a 40 by 50 square and say that's where the house is going.
So sort of right after, during when I'm buying this property, I've contacted the building department.
Yeah.
And they, and they sort of know that something's, because I need their input.
Yeah, well, and typically I pull the permit as the contractor.
Well, not for the septic.
Oh, no, not for the septic. No,
right.
no, I don't.
Yeah.
No, but that's a different department, the health department.
Oh, that's health department.
The health, or in erosion control, that's a whole other thing too. Erosion control.
In this county it is?
There are, yes, but not as much as in other counties around us. They're a lot more particular about it, and they have to approve your erosion control plan. And I think you even have to submit a plan, and they have to have an inspector come out and make sure that you've implemented the design of your plan, which would be like silt fences and putting down straw and covering any exposed dirt so it doesn't erode, or planting grass, or having drainage. I don't know to what extent they inspect or require, but you definitely cannot have sediment just flowing off your site going down in the woods, right? I mean, I think everybody knows that by now. Maybe not, but that's the idea, is that you don't want sediment flowing into the streams and rivers and whatever.
Yeah. Or your neighbor's yard.
I had a good friend that had a bad experience where he had somebody come in, clear a bunch of land for him and cut trees. But my buddy that this happened to, he went out of town the week that the guy was there working, and he had told him, hey, cut that 1, 2, or 3 trees right there, and they're worth money. These poplar trees, they're big, nice, straight poplars. And he told the grading contractor that he could have them. So the guy's going to cut them, load them up on a truck, and sell them at the sawmill. Well, the grading contractor took advantage of the fact that the homeowner was gone for a week, and he cut and cleared a massive area, not what he was told to do. Cut all the trees, sold them, made a bunch of money, left an absolute wreck of this area. I mean, a total disaster. And then all this dirt was exposed. It was nasty. As far as not being really like smoothed up or anything at all. And then a bunch of rain came, and this sediment all washed off of his property, made it worse and worse. Went down into the neighbor's property where they had like cow pastures and they had ponds, and all the sediment like filled the ponds. I'm talking filled to the top.
Wow.
And so then my guy, he had to go and pay for all the silt and all the sediment to get dug out and restore his neighbor's property, he had to eat the cost of that himself. And so when I say don't get the cheapest excavator person out there, or a fly-by-night kind of excavator, I don't know. And how do you know that they are or not? I don't know. But the idea is that you...
References?
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. And what if a big rain comes and your whole road washes out?
Yeah.
And then they disappear, right? It does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that this is happening too. Has happened. So I don't know. How do you know? I don't know.
And when do I pay you in this process? Is it like, do I pay you in one lump sum at the end or at the beginning?
Well, for building a house?
Yeah.
Well, it'll happen typically through the bank in payments.
Well, what if I've got cash?
Oh, if you got cash?
Yeah.
You're my friend. No, a cash person is good, assuming they have, enough to actually fund the entire build. But I would say, all right, we have a contract, okay, that I'm going to present to you as the builder. You're going to approve and sign and have this formal legal commitment to each other that I'm going to give you what you want and you're going to pay me to build it. You know, and it outlines, okay, I'm a cost plus builder right now we do cost plus 20%. That's my fee is 20% of the building cost. And I'm sure that percentage varies in different areas or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Now we would probably outline in the contract a certain amount of money upfront to start with. Maybe it's $50,000. If it's a regular size house, that will get going. That'll get the foundation put in. That'll get started on framing. If it's a mega house, that will not get the foundation complete. If it's got a huge basement and tons of slabs and, plumbing under the slabs, that's all going to be in there in the front end and all, who knows what else. But yeah, it requires money up front to be deposited in my business account before I will start building.
Okay.
Yeah. We simply will not go on site until they fund
that portion of the project.
Yeah. I mean, it's otherwise it's going to be on me to pay for everything. And I don't do that. I mean, I don't know anybody that does that.
Yeah.
Maybe big companies, maybe there's some big companies that might do that, like national home building custom companies. I just made that up. I don't know if that's a thing. But let's say you go to the car dealership and you want to buy a car. Some dealerships are big enough that they will loan you the money for the car.
Right.
And then maybe they go through banks, but whatever. If you go to a little mom and pop's used car sales place, they're not going to finance a car for you probably. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, when do I get insurance on this?
Well,
I mean,
you need insurance as soon as you start construction, the very minute you start. And there's a special kind of insurance. It's called builder's risk, I think. Is that right, Brett? Builder's risk insurance. The bank will make sure you have it.
Right.
Because they're the ones at risk. Let's say you get halfway built and it burns down. Ooh. Well, the bank had better have insurance on it. And if you are the builder and there is no bank, you need to have construction insurance, that builder's risk construction insurance, and it'll convert to regular insurance when the house is complete.
Gotcha.
We've never had any major problems, thankfully.
Full-scale remodels too. It's builder's risk.
And for remodels, if you do a big renovation. So apparently your standard homeowners insurance is not suited for a huge renovation where you tear the whole house apart.
Yeah. Well, and it's so with your houses too, you're booked out for a couple of years. All right, with people that are lined up. We've seen the plans for the next one. Do you require a deposit from those clients to make sure that they don't just go willy-nilly find another builder in this time, or not?
We used to have probably 5 people waiting, and we did like a small deposit just to make sure to filter out people who are just kicking the tires from people who are really serious. They want this house built and they're going to wait.
Because you need that for your crew. You need that expectation that once this one's done, I know I have the next one lined up, right?
It's good to not have a big gap in work, so we try to, have somebody lined up and all the while, while I'm doing this house I'm doing now, we're over halfway done with the job, but my mind is already beginning to get all the planning done for the next job. I mean, I'm calling the homeowner. I'm talking to the grading contractor that's going to work on their site, and it's somebody that I approve of. It's actually my current homeowner is going to become the grading contractor for the next one, and he's great. So I'm doing all the stuff with the power. I'm doing all the stuff with the road improvements. Those are happening, and I have a house plan that's already completed. Although I'm going to input this house plan into SketchUp, like somebody already did this for me. But it was amazing. I don't know where it is.
Saw it.
Did you see it?
They sent it to us. It was on Instagram.
Okay.
And I sent it to you. I think.
Okay.
It was on
It
was on their personal Instagram, and they shared it, and I sent it over to you.
All right.
I think you looked at it. Yeah.
It was
You and Eric
impressive.
both. Yeah.
It was impressive, and it was very pretty. But the only problem is I still have to do it again for myself.
Yeah.
Because I need a structural.
But they did that from the video, the Perkins Builder Brothers
insane.
video of you showing those plans, and then they like pop out.
I don't know how they did it. I don't know how we did not show every dimension. We didn't show every page of the plan.
That's pretty good.
I don't know how they did it. It was amazing. All right. Well,
with that part, like, what would you say is the most expensive part of building a home? Like, I mean, if you were to cut it up into cake slices, let's say, like, what's the most
into phases?
Sure. I like cake slices.
Cake slices. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Let's see. The baker at him's coming out. Everything's cake.
It's a pie chart. There, look at it from the top. Look at it from the top.
Oh, wow. You got me there. Oh, man. I don't know. It can vary on the build, the type of house it is a lot, of course. Like,
you're going to say finishings again, aren't you?
I don't know. I mean, framing costs. Windows and doors.
Is that part of framing?
No. I mean, it's right after, by the time you start framing, you should order your windows and doors, by the way, if not before.
Okay.
I don't know, man. It seems like every part is expensive. Shoot, that's a terrible answer, but
I mean, if there was a way, if I was going to try to do, let's say, trim my budget for my house, where would you say that I should look in there
to save money?
To save money, yeah. Like, I'm $25,000 over on this. Like, where could I look to be like, I can pinch that down a little bit?
What I recommend is things that you can replace later. So that in the end, hopefully you could actually get what you want. For example, if you can't afford, let's just say composite decking, but you really want it, buy some wood decking. It'll get you down the road 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then maybe by then you'll need to replace it potentially and pull it up and put down the stuff that you really wanted. And you'll have gotten the value out of the wood decking that you paid for.
Okay.
Maybe light fixtures, because you can buy super cheap light fixtures and get that thing past inspection. Mm-hmm. And then later you say, you know what, I want this $500 chandelier in my dining room. And then you go buy it and you swap it out, no sweat.
Okay.
Things that are difficult are, framing. You're not going to change framing probably. Okay, here's a good one. Or even floor coverings, like for example, if it's carpet and it's something you can pull up and put down a wood floor later. Say you want wood floor in the bedroom, but you can't afford it yet. Throw some cheap carpet in there, let that roll 5-10 years, and then pull it up and wood the rest of the thing. Something that's not going to be super terrible to replace. A lot of times we used to almost always build basements that were unfinished.
Right.
Because they were like, I want this big basement, I want a game room, I want a movie room, I want a whatever. But we don't want to finish it now because it's a lot of money to make it heated, finished space. But let's make all the accommodations for it and let's leave it unfinished. And then in 5 years, I'll call you and come and finish it. And we've done that multiple times. Mm-hmm. So that's a great way to kind of include the footage in your house, but not have to pay for it all to the finished level.
Right. Some people can do that with their attic too, can't they?
You could do that, maybe a bonus room.
Yeah.
Over the garage or some kind of...
Like depending on how you built your house, you could have a second story that's not quite finished.
You could make sure if you want a bathroom in it, you go ahead and put the plumbing in though at the first part of the build. Things like that, you can't. Mm-hmm. Well, not that you can't, but stairs. If you want a bathroom in the basement, make sure you plumb under the concrete.
Yeah. I mean, a big thing would be like a garage. I mean, you could change the plan to not necessarily include a garage right away, right?
Absolutely.
That it could be added on later.
Make sure you just made accommodations for it, and don't shoot yourself in the foot by, doing something silly that you can't change. But yeah, so adding a garage is a good one, I think. I don't know. Those are all good things. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Overall design, though, is going to dictate the cost so much that, you just better pick a design that you can afford to build.
If there's one thing not to skimp on, I mean, you said that was a grading contractor or whatever, to do that. Definitely don't skimp on that. But like when it comes to the house itself, like don't skimp on this. Like, is it windows? Is it roof? Is it,
windows, insulation. Like we're doing some sound proofing insulation in between levels and in between walls, between like bedrooms and laundry rooms and bathrooms. And you cannot easily add interior sound insulation.
Right.
If you want to do it, now just do it from the start. You know what I mean? What are some other things like that? I don't know. I don't know.
That's good. All right. Well, that's a pretty good, synopsis, I think. I don't think we really got into the steps of, once the foundation's laid, exactly what comes next and next and next, but we can talk about that
we did.
later. But you could also be ongoing. Yeah, but you could watch the Perkins Builder Brothers channel and you could see that process.
You could just watch it. You could just watch it all.
You could see what comes next and next and next, right?
Yeah, I remember being mesmerized, at least, that my dad knew how to build a house when I was younger. When I first was old enough to be on a job site, I didn't know anything about building.
Yeah.
And I was like, how does he even know what to do next? How do you even know? I was like, I wish there was just a list in order.
Right.
Okay, do this thing. All right. All done. Now what's next? I mean, that would be easy. Spell it out step by step. There is.
It's called a Gantt chart.
Brett's telling me there is a thing like that called a Gantt chart.
Well, you would make a Gantt chart.
What are you even talking about? Gantt. I never heard that word in my life.
I guess
it's a job flow chart.
A job flow chart. Okay. Well, they exist, I guess, now that Brett told me they do.
You just don't do them. Or your dad didn't
I think
either.
we're going to run out of time here because that haircut's coming up soon.
It is coming up, but it's coming up soon. But I have a few questions I want to get to real quick.
Let's do it.
You just can't be too long-winded about it. I think they're short answer questions.
Don't tell me how long I can talk. Come on now.
All right, I've got one here. So this is Ethan Martin 4985 asks, as someone wanting to start a contracting company, what's one thing to hone in on?
Starting a contracting company. And he's going to be the owner, I guess it sounds like. Wow. Oh, man. Make sure you know how to do the thing that you're going to advertise yourself as doing. Make sure that you know what you're doing as far as being a builder, and make sure that you have some business sense. And a lot of people go out, they think they can build a house. They know how to build a house. They may have been working for a builder for years and they see the building process, but they don't know what it's like to be a business owner.
To get paid and to pay people.
It's like, it's a disaster waiting to happen if you're only good at building houses, but you don't know anything about business, then you're going to get in a bad spot.
Right. So, and to pay yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure that you have a plan on how you're going to make money as a business owner and make sure that you can execute the job that you just sold to somebody, by performing the work is what I mean.
All right. That's a good point, I think. All right. This is related to the current house you're doing, mega build here. Ed Williamson asks, what brand of windows went into, I asked this more recently, I think, when that episode was going on, but what brand of windows are going into the mega modern house? And, are the windows that open and close the same brand as the fixed pane windows?
Good questions. The brand is called Windsor. W-I-N-D, Windsor. It's hard to say the D. Mm-hmm. We've used that brand quite a long time. I would say more than 10 years, I'm sure. And it's a pretty good quality brand. The reason we selected this window for this house is because they have the black vinyl window.
Gotcha.
And it's not painted. I don't know if people know, but a lot of the color options in vinyl windows, it's a white vinyl window that they paint black or brown or tan, or they actually make an almond color. That is, the vinyl is like almond, or tan colored through and through. The material is. But now, I don't know. There are only a few brands and companies that make a true, either a composite or a vinyl window. That's, I'm going to say, budget. It's not budget. Okay, well, that's not the right word. They're affordable,
right?
Compared to a clad window that's aluminum on the outside and wood on the inside. I actually like them. This series, I don't know what the series name is on these things. Anderson makes also a black composite window. I think it's like the 100 series. I could be wrong on that, but so that's why we chose it, because it's black and that fits the aesthetic of the design, and they're reasonably affordable.
Okay.
And the doors, so and the ones that open are the same. We have some casement windows and a lot of fixed glass, tons of fixed glass. We do have some Windsor brand front door, like the entry door.
Yeah.
It's a French door. And we have some big sliding glass doors that are also Windsor. In this house, though, there are these, I don't know if they're called bifolding doors, but they are a 12-foot wide opening with 4 or 5 panels.
They're like accordion.
Yeah, there you go. So you can open them all up and have a huge opening. Those are a different brand. I don't even know what brand they are. Gotcha. They came from Home Depot, though.
Oh.
And they got shipped in a tractor trailer to the bottom of the mountain. And I got to carry them up the mountain on a machine, you know. They came from California, actually.
Yeah.
I walked behind the machine. And I got a good shot of it in the video.
And this next question falls into that about the windows still. This is Guy Brander. That's, and I probably mispronounced his first name, but are you using single or double glazing? Okay, this is a question, but...
Are we talking about donuts or no? They're double glazed, meaning there's 2 panes of glass, and in between them is argon gas.
Right.
Or some other inert gas that is better insulation value than air or, atmospheric air at least. So double glazed,
Cool.
That's it.
Well, we'll be back next week to talk more about some other topic, and
I can't wait, man.
I can't wait to get to some more of these questions.
This has been fun. I like the questions because I never know what you're going to say.
I like to see you think on the spot. You know, it's
good.
good, especially when you're giving out life advice here. That's great. It's great to see you ponder on that. But yeah, thanks for helping me with my house that I'm never going to build. So I appreciate
Well,
that.
I bet it sounds like you got it all figured out now. So you're good to go. All right. Well, we're going to be done for now. I encourage you to be curious. And if you don't know, just ask. Thanks for joining us.